I've already discussed this before. Maybe I'll grab that video and put it on this channel. I'm really not trying to turn this channel into a race channel or discussing race all the time. It just has to come up when we're talking about the Second Amendment because it's a huge pink elephant in the room, and we already know that the majority of the gun community, the Second Amendment community in America, is predominantly white male, older white male. So there's a lot of things that I see and I hear that just completely irritate me and piss me off. There's a whole mentality that revolves around being a gun owner in America. Like, you gotta be conservative. You gotta be pissed off about Colin Kaepernick taking a knee. You gotta be, pro any war. We support our troops. We support law enforcement, even though you'll talk about gunning them down and if they threaten to take your guns. I was on Pinterest earlier in the day, and I was scrolling through stuff and came across a bunch of Colin Kaepernick taking a knee posts where they had like a picture of a veteran with like no legs and no arms, and they were like, "This is a real hero. This is a real uniform. This is a costume." And they were saying all this stuff. He needs to stand. All this crap. He's disrespecting the troops, even though we already know that the man sat on the bench to bring awareness to police brutality. Black people have been dealing with police brutality ever since the damn slave patrols. 93% of all law enforcement are white. Only 3% are black. And it's like, the national anthem gets played. It's like, what does the national anthem mean to white people when y'all hear the national anthem? Do you honestly really believe that it means 100% the same thing when we hear the national anthem? Like I said before, the last group of people that should ever be criticized for being un-American are black people, especially the way that black people have fought in every conflict that this nation has ever had, while being second-class citizens. So if anybody has earned the right to sit down or earned the right to burn the flag or earned the right to trample on it, it's African Americans. But yet white people don't see it that way. Like, there's this trigger that they get when they see it. It's like, you're making them feel bad. Like, white people, they don't like white guilt. They hate anybody making them feel bad, about the transgressions of their ancestors, rather than confront it. Right, so they rage out. I'm like, what's really disrespectful in terms of disrespecting the troops? Some of these VA hospitals, or the way that veterans get ignored, when they come home. And I don't know what the number is, but I'm pretty sure that the vast majority of homeless white Americans are veterans who probably came back and lost their minds after serving tours of duty. The highest suicide rate is among veterans. But yet nobody's jumping up and down, making that a national crisis. Nobody's running around with ribbons talking about, hey, we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to support this. But Colin Kaepernick taking a knee about police brutality is disrespecting the troops. I can't deal with white people with this level of intellectual dishonesty when it comes to, certain things. It's pointless to argue with them. It's pointless to debate them because all they seem to want to do is gaslight and deflect away from, what the real issue is. Right. So I was watching the London Real. I told you all that I was watching the London Real, which is a very conservative London based. It's kind of like I guess PragerU or something like that, like a London PragerU. And I've been watching a number of clips from Douglas Murray. And sometimes I agree with him, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I agree with small sections of what he says, and then other times there's just areas that I just do not agree with him. But I was watching this video where he was talking about, does white privilege exist? I'll put the link in the description box. And he goes on to basically gaslight the whole thing. Now, if you don't know, Douglas Murray is a homosexual himself, which is kind of perplexing with all of his conservative views. But, I guess that's equally as perplexing as me being an African American black man and supporting the Second Amendment, right? Even though I call out all the bullshit that, typically comes from the right, right? But technically speaking, it makes sense for me to support the Second Amendment as an African American based on all of the racist history and aspects of white supremacy that have negatively impacted and affected the black community, both on the collective level and the individual level. But anyway, going back to the whole Douglas Murphy conversation, what was irritating me about what he was saying, not just what he was saying, what he was doing, right? He starts off with, is there white privilege? And then he brings up the point about IQs and how, we don't want to go into IQs. Basically, that was like his default. Basically, it's like he wanted to say, well, when are we just going to acknowledge that white people are just smarter than black people and black people have low IQs, right? And as I've stated before, if white people have superior IQs, if white people have superior ingenuity, then both their superior IQs and their superior ingenuity is only matched by their savagery or propensity for violence. For further evidence, I direct you to Europeans' violent, grotesquely violent history, whether it's the wars that they had with themselves, where they were running at each other with battle axes on the field like Braveheart, or the Napoleonic Wars, or World War I, or World War II, right? Or the way that they left Europe and went around raping and pillaging the whole rest of the damn planet, right? Creating weapons of mass destruction, nuclear bombs, napalm, aircraft carriers, nuclear subs, right? Gatling guns, Tomahawk missiles, right? You name it, right? All of that speaks to their ingenuity, but it never speaks to Europeans' savagery, right? The fact that Africans don't manufacture their own guns speaks to our low IQs and our intellectual inferiority, but yet it doesn't speak to our lack of propensity to violence, or the idea that we learned violence from the European, or that Europeans helped facilitate African violence, right? Not to say that Africans never had conflicts with themselves. That would be preposterous to say anything like that. But as we know, it was the Europeans who taught the Native Americans, namely, I believe, the Sioux Indians, how to scalp. That was the French that taught them how to scalp Europeans. But yet, Europeans made it seem like, Indians, they'll scalp you. It's a Native American thing because Native Americans are savages. But it actually came from the Europeans, you see. So who's the real savage? So anyway, so he goes on to talk about the whole low IQ things. You know what irritates me about the low IQ things, right? Are Europeans better tacticians than black people? If I look at the world today, absolutely. I can't deny that. You know what I mean? It's like a football team. You got like the NFL, right? You got a whole bunch of football teams, and one team wins the Super Bowl. That means that they were a better team than all the other teams. Whether people want to argue whether it's them being smarter, better than them have better coaches, better players, better what do you call it? A better playbook, better plays. It could be a whole combination of things, right? But I don't dispute that. Obviously, black people, we lost, right? Europeans came into Africa and we lost. What irritates me is the lack of complete honesty in discussing the manner in which black people were subverted in the way that they lost, right? It's like, the white Europeans will say, black people, they don't know how to be they don't show self-determination, and right? And yet, look at the number of leaders that France has basically assassinated when it came to the Francophone regions of West Africa, right? This is the same argument that's made about the way that the Europeans, powers that be, have gone in and basically manipulated foreign economies, sending in economic hitmen, those sorts of things that I've talked about before, right? I mean, when you look at the self-hatred, for example, that comes from the massive amounts of media promotion and the ideas and concepts of Christianity, religion, which is used as a political tool, which prevents people from critically thinking. They get all into being righteous and being just and, wishful thinking and learn to not be violent. Yeah, don't be violent against your masters, right? Then when black people don't self-actualize and don't respond as they should in a violent manner as they should, the same way that a European would respond if a European was threatened, as we see when it comes to, we're going to take your guns away from my cold dead hands. Oh, that's a natural European response. But if a black person were to say that, oh, shoot that nigger, he needs to comply, right? It's a double standard. It's hypocrisy. So there's ways in which Europeans have basically convinced black people to not operate underneath their own steam. The Arab did the same thing to the African, not operate underneath your own steam. But if I took a snippet of time, right, if I looked at the Iberian Peninsula when the Arabs and the Moors were ruling the Iberian Peninsula in the 1300s, would I be able to say at that date and time that the European was superior? Why would I say that? Many of the structures in Granada in Spain were designed and created by, the Arabs and the Moors. So at that point, I would say that the superior race, the superior group of the Iberian Peninsula in the 1300s was clearly the Arab or the Moor. I mean, hell, Europeans, do you do arithmetic and math in Roman numerals? No, you don't. You do it in Arab numerals. If you didn't know, 1 through 10 are Arabic numerals. Right? It's so funny how there's such disdain for the Arab, but yet the Arab is the one that brought much of the knowledge that Europeans use to this day, like the Arabic numerals. Or if you look at the constellations in the sky, most of the constellations in the sky are have Arabic names. If most people don't know that, most Europeans don't know that, especially the ones that come on the internet and talk a whole bunch of shit about white racial superiority. Because again, when you go back to the ancient world, Europeans did not have the knowledge. They were not the first. It's just over the last couple hundred years, they have definitely taken that knowledge and used it more effectively than anybody else. So currently, right now, they are the best football team. Same with Genghis Khan. When Genghis Khan was running into Eastern Europe and running into the where the Russians are. That's why you see those Euro Asians. You ever see those white looking Russians? I mean, not white looking Russians, Asian looking Russians. They're Euro Asian. They look like they're Asian, but they're like kind of Europeanish. All them people in Uzbekistan and countries like that. Yeah, that's because Genghis Khan was running up in there. If I went back to that period of time, I don't know when was that, 10 AD or not 10 AD, like 1000 AD or 1200 AD. I don't know when that was, right? But I'm saying at that point in time, I would say clearly the Mongolians are superior. Now they're just a bunch of, Kashmir farmers and whatnot. They're a shadow, not even barely a shadow of what they once were, right? So, I'm not even going to get into how much I think a lot of aspects of African history were buried or go into the last cataclysm and all that stuff that Bright Insight talks about. I'm not going to go into that. I'm just going to focus on what Mr. Murray said and some of the things that irritated me. One of the number one thing that he did that really was just so intellectually dishonest. And it enrages me when people who I know are smarter than that are intellectually dishonest. And then you have all these people who come through with bias confirmation, which is what majority of the comment section is filled with. A bunch of low IQ white people who come into the comment section and, they're like, yeah, that's right. White privilege doesn't exist. Right. But getting back to Douglas Murray, the thing that he did was he tried to conflate white privilege with class in order to dismiss it and claim that therefore it doesn't exist. Like it's almost like taking a proton and a neutron and not a proton and a neutron, a positron and and an electron and smacking them together and they obliterate each other, right? That's literally what he tried to do. So because there's classes in the white community, white privilege can't exist, or it doesn't exist. Think about that. So because I can find a poor white person that doesn't feel the full effects of his white privilege relative to a minority person, namely a black person, that therefore white privilege doesn't exist. I mean, it would be more accurate to say that only a handful of people truly benefit from white privilege, right? Like benefit in the utmost way, right? But to say that even poor people don't have an advantage when it comes to white privilege in a white dominated society is absurd. It's intellectually dishonest. I mean, would you rather be a black man in America or would you rather be white? Think about it. Think about it. I mean, what white man would want to trade places with an African American? Tell me where, how, what in terms of securing a job, in terms of being able to live in a certain neighborhood and able to be able to acquire loans, right? Presumption of innocence or presumption of guilt based on your skin. What white person would want to trade places with a black person in America? But yet white privilege doesn't exist. And the absurdity of that, of even suggesting that it doesn't exist because of class, is like saying that the wealthy whites don't conspire against the poor whites. I mean, screw calling it white privilege. Let's call it what it is, white supremacy. What is the goal of white supremacy? The goal of white supremacy that has been well documented from the founding fathers to the Jim Crow laws, you name it, to even the apartheids in South Africa. I mean these back in the day, it was so accepted to be a racist that these elite white men would write it down in their journals or write it down into policy. I mean, let me pull it up, because I was talking to somebody and I was going over the Dred Scott case, right? So let me see if I can find it, because I know I sent it. Where's it at? Hold on, give me 1 second, because I know I sent it. Here we go. Dred Scott, right? So this is coming from the this is earlier in the opinion. In holding that blacks generally could not be U.S. citizens, the court said, this is the court of the United States of America, the Supreme Court, SCOTUS, okay? It cannot be supposed that the original 13 states intended to secure to blacks rights and privileges and rank in the new political body throughout the Union, which every one of them denied within the limits of its own dominion. More especially, it cannot be believed that the large slave-holding states regarded them as included in the word citizens, or would have consented to the Constitution which might compel them to receive them in that character for another state. For if they were so received and entitled to the privileges and immunities of citizens, it would exempt them from the operation of the special laws and from the police regulations which they considered to be necessary for their own safety, basically Jim Crow laws. It would give to persons of the Negro race who were recognized as citizens in any one state of the Union the right to enter every other state whenever they pleased, singly or in companies. This is a typo. It's singly or in companies, without pass or passport, and without obstruction, to sojourn there as long as they pleased, to go where they pleased at every hour of the day or night without molestation, unless they committed some violation of law for which a white man would be punished, and it would give them the full liberty of speech in public and in private upon all subjects upon which its own citizens might speak, to hold public meetings up upon political affairs, and to keep and carry arms whenever they want, And all of this would be done in the face of the subject race of the same color, both free and slaves, and inevitably producing discontent and subordination among them and endangering the peace and safety of the state. So if that's not white privilege, I don't know what is white privilege. If that's not white supremacy, I don't know what is white supremacy. Ironically, for the pro-Second Amendment people, that little piece right there basically says that the Second Amendment has nothing to do with the militia, because what was in question is the citizenship, or recognizing black people as equal citizens to white people. And with those rights would come the ability to keep and bear arms. And as it was said in here, to go to and from wherever they want with whatever possession of, what does it say? To hold public meetings upon political affairs, and to keep and carry arms wherever they went. That right there, ladies and gentlemen, supports the Second Amendment and the idea that it doesn't have a damn thing to do with a militia. It's an individual right. That's why the comma is there, right? But again, to act like white privilege doesn't exist because you have white people who are poor, and then to even further expand on that point, it's like, let's look at it at the collective level, right? This is like when people bring up Colin Kaepernick and they talk about he was making $114 million. How many black people are even close to that? Look at the NFL owners, team owners, right? Who, again, conspired against him to make sure that he would never play football in the NFL again. You see how easy it is to conspire against somebody and block them out when you are in a position of power, when you are in a position of privilege, right? And again, the whole concept of maintaining that power is on the whole concept of preserving that privilege, to keep it and pass it on to your children so that they are either the ruling class or not subject to the will or whims of other groups of people or their current subordinates or your current subordinates, so that they maintain that power and you pass on that wealth and those legacies. Yes, there is class warfare among all the races. There is class warfare that doesn't just operate against the whites in the white community. It also operates against the blacks in the black community. But it's like a mountaintop when you look at it from top to bottom. When you look at your people who are the wealthiest, your Fortune 500 company owners and things of that nature, they're all white. They're all white, and they're all white just because, black people got low IQs. No, they're white because whites conspired to maintain that power. It's one of the reasons why they created miscegenation laws and why the Lovings of Virginia had to try to fight so that white man could be with a black woman, because they did not want to see the transfer of wealth being passed on from a white man to his biracial children, which is why the white community has always one drop ruled them out. You can only be white in the purest sense of white, but yet black people, we got to deal with colorism and this whole spectrum of questioning our identity and who's really black and who's not black, because you can have somebody who's as light skinned as Beyonce or Rihanna, or have somebody who's as dark skinned as Jaimin Hansu or Lupita Nyong'o, and then say that they're both equally black. That's absurd. White people would never play that game. Again, white people are maintaining the system of white supremacy when they do that. So to say that there's no such thing as white privilege because there's a poor white man out here, it's bullshit. It's bullshit. Again, give me a successful black man and I can give you 5,000 successful white men. It's just that simple. This system is designed to benefit the excellence of white people. That's what people are discussing when they talk about white privilege. Yes, I know there's people out there that go just full retard, just complete full retard. I mean, it's funny because I'll even have white feminists that'll come at me and try to get me to tear down patriarchy or say that I shouldn't believe in patriarchy because it's a system of oppression because it oppresses women, which I don't believe. And then simultaneously hit me over the head and try to slam me with the idea that because I'm a black male, I have male privilege over them as white females. What's so funny is this is one of the reasons why white women wanted to be able to vote with the suffragists, the white suffragists, because they were so offended at the fact that white men gave black men the ability to vote before they gave white women the ability to vote. And that is proof of gender bias. Again, women ignoring all the privileges that women get, which we see in the court systems, and we see in terms of, especially back in the day where, not only did men have to go and fight and die in war with the white feather girls in the UK, but also a man had to pay his wife's debt. So if she got in trouble or she owed somebody, the husband had to pay it. The man that she was with had to pay it. Or he would get flogged and tarred and feathered and everything for whatever the hell she did. That's how it worked. But, again, it's all about male privilege. It's the most ridiculous thing in the world. It's like even with the white women friggin' claiming that they're so oppressed and they just cut in the line, cut in the front of the line of black people. The ridiculous thing about that is I'm like, okay, so what do white women want? What do they want? Like reparations or something, right? And see, this is where a person like Douglas Murray will try to gaslight and try to use white women as an example of, look how ridiculous this is, right? And try to like as though white people would need black people for their survival, right? Like white people could eradicate black people, wipe them out. White men are not going to wipe out white women. If white men wiped out white women, that would be the end of the white race, right? And then the idea that there'd be reparations for women's oppression, however you want to put that, as though white women don't sleep next to power. What's the white man going to do? Write the white woman a check, and then at night she's going to get in the bed and slip the check in his back pocket, right? Again, they're in it together to form, produce little white children to maintain the system of white supremacy. That's what it is. That's what it's about. But I mean, the rest of the video was just drivel, in my opinion, because I mean, it was just nothing but gaslighting. It was like, the ridiculousness of that. And reparation for gays and all. Like, nobody's talking about reparations for gays. Nobody's talking about that. And see, this is what happens. This is why I try to tell black people all this stuff, all this talk that black people do about, what about the black and brown folk and what about the Syrian refugees and everything. Black people got to learn to be selfish, right? Because we get pushed to the back of the line. When we talking about African American descendants of slaves, that is what we are talking about. We ain't talking about anybody else. And what other groups try to do is they try to gaslight us. What I noticed, what I found interesting is when it comes to the Native Americans, because it's already been established that Native Americans are owed. I forget what tribe it is, but they're owed. They have like money for some particular tribe up there where they built the crazy horse statue or whatever. So they're owed. They have like $3 billion that's sitting in a pot. The Native Americans haven't touched it. But because it's been established that those Native Americans are owed, what the white supremacist U.S. government has done is they have basically broken down Native Americans into quarters. So your Native Americanness is broken down into quarters. In other words, because the Native Americans are owed that money, that specific amount of money, white people going to make damn sure who is Native American and who is not. They're not going to do that Pocahontas bullshit, with Elizabeth Warren. No, they're going to make sure who is Native American and who is not, down to your DNA, right? But see, with the African Americans, and some people would argue that this is the conspiracy behind trying to promote like that Cheerios commercial or a whole number of the commercials, the watering down of the black race. It's so funny hearing white people talk about, the white race is being bred out and everything. I'm like, there's 220 million of you all. There's only 44 million African Americans. So who do you think is going to get bred out first? right? But again, if it was ever established that African Americans were owed, just like it was established that this, Native Americans were owed, oh, you best believe they would be breaking us down by the DNA. What percentage of you is African? And oh, they would be they'd be taking swabs all over the place. Again, once it's been established that you are owed money. But since that hasn't been established, it doesn't matter whether we get one drop rolled to death. It doesn't matter whether Rihanna has green eyes. It doesn't matter, whether freaking, Trevor Noah looks the way that he does, or Barack Obama has a white mother from Kansas. Oh, they're all black. They're all niggas. It's all the same. Yeah, because they don't owe us shit. It hasn't been established yet. Once that shit is established, oh, oh, I don't think you're really black. Your nose is too narrow. Your lips are too thin. You don't have a typical nigger nose. They'll be saying all type of shit like that. Your hair is a little bit too loose textured. Oh yeah. This whole idea, white privilege doesn't exist, and we're going to gaslight it by saying that because there's class differences among the white race, that therefore white privilege doesn't exist. Right? Because every white person doesn't benefit from white privilege the same way. Like, that's such a childish bullshit ass argument. I mean bullshit to the nth degree. I mean, just bullshit. Again, if white people can see it when it comes to class, when you can see it when it comes to the millionaires and billionaires and the Michael Bloombergs and the way that he's throwing around money and, advocating for gun control and talking about how he wants to run for president so he can sign a whole bunch of gun control. If you can see what all that type of money can do when it comes to I forgot, Michael Bloomberg's Jewish, so he got to wait for the white guys in the background to go, here's the Jews. They come with all their anti-Zionist theories, right? But anyway, even with Jews, right? If a Jew is not walking around with those little freaking, I don't know what you call them damn yarmulke curls and stuff like that, you ain't gonna know that he's Jewish. It's one of the reasons why you get a lot of white people who they see Jews, they have all these Zionist Jewish theories because Jews can infiltrate the white race. It's the same way that, ironically, when Italians first came to America, with Sacco and Vincetti, the New York gun laws were actually created, the first New York gun laws, because remember, they didn't have a whole bunch of black people in New York at that time. It was all, all the black people were in the South. So their target population was the Italians. And the Italians, they have all type of cartoons that they drew of Italians. They got like these little, we call them like jail pants, the pirate pants, with the black and white stripes on them. And they try to act like, oh, they're just these unscrupulous people and whatnot. And the first gun laws in New York were created to keep guns out of the hands of Italians. I think one of the first cases about being able to conceal carry. And then, they come with the whole, it's so funny how concealed carry is shifted, because back in the day, it's like, oh, if you were only a scoundrel will conceal his weapon, a true gentleman will plainly show his weapon in broad daylight on his hip, right? That was the whole concept back then. Now it's like, hot man, like now you got to fight to get open carry. Even though I don't believe in open carry, because I think open carry is tactically stupid, especially in urban environments. Too many gang members running around, and they will take your shit. And again, you're not going to draw on a drawn gun, so you can forget about that. But I'm just saying, it's very, what the attempt is, and I think it's because black people have the best case. African Americans have the best case. And so because of that, white men like Douglas Murray, what they want to do, and the strange thing, he's British, he's not even American, so that shit wouldn't even apply to him. But anyway, what they want to do is they want to, just make these ridiculous arguments, bringing in these, false arguments into the room about, well, what about these other groups, and what about this other group, and they want to play the oppression Olympics. And so now it's, oh, black people, you're not owed anything because your plight and the history and everything that you went through that's specific to America is no different than, the gays, because gays have been discriminated against too. So I guess we got to have reparations for them too, right? To try to make black people's reparation argument ridiculous. I mean, you're talking 350 years of slavery, 100 years of Jim Crow, and discrimination that still continues to this day. You got black people can't even wear their hair the way it naturally grows out of their head. They got to create laws in New York and California to try to allow people to not be discriminated against in the workplace for wearing their hair the way it grows out of their head. Right. Again, going back to the reinforcement of self-hatred that white supremacy induces on black people, basically saying everything about black people is unacceptable. Your nose is unacceptable. Your hair is unacceptable. Your lips are unacceptable. Your dark skin is unacceptable. Nothing about you is desirable. Nothing about you is worthy of anything, right? Which creates a inferiority complex and a self-hatred complex, right? And then white people go, oh, we don't know why the niggers can't get it together. Right. They don't seem to love one another. They are out here killing each other. Yeah, based on ideas and concepts that were injected and imposed onto black people through white people's mass media and imagery. For further evidence, I direct you to those old racist Bugs Bunny cartoons. Elmer Fudd is not based off of a white hunter who's running around hunting rabbits. Elmer Fudd is based off of the stereotypical dumb black man from the South that was too stupid to be to outsmart Bugs Bunny. Right? Just type in racist cartoons. Just type it in. I mean, they were playing all these racist cartoons all the way up until like the 1940s. Until they took them down, 1940s and 1950s, until they took them down. I mean, just blatantly racist cartoons, like so racist it'll make you gasp. Like just type in racist cartoon Lazy Town. That's what they called it, Lazy Town. I might put that in the description box if I can find it. All this is white privilege. You don't have. I can't go on the internet and pull up images of black people lynching white people and then bringing out the whole community to stand over the white people's charred remains or stand over the white people hanging from a tree, and they're sitting there smiling like it's this big town event, like they're at some goddamn carnival. I can't pull images up like that. So the idea that white supremacy doesn't exist. How is it that white supremacy or white privilege doesn't exist, but yet we can still have a conversation about legacies and generational wealth? Right? We can still have that conversation. And again, some of this is inherent to capitalism. Right? But to act like, black people where somehow, it's just their low IQs that's why they're down there. When black people started out with huge disadvantage, nothing to them but the clothes on their backs, from slavery, right? Reconstruction was designed to help the African Americans because there were many white people who recognized that they're like, we got to integrate them into society. But those were quickly smacked down with Jim Crow laws. Again, I direct you to the Vox video that was created highlighting the insurrection of 1898 in Wilmington, North Carolina, and how white supremacy literally just took over the town and they ran the black people out of there using white people's most powerful tool, which is media and propaganda. I mean, this is what was done. These are the historical facts. Run them out of town. Burn down their communities. Tulsa, Oklahoma, Springfield, Illinois, Omaha, Nebraska. How much generational wealth was not passed on in the black community because those communities were burnt down? Where would the black community be if those communities and those businesses still existed today? People want to sit there and they want to look at Baltimore and they go, oh, look, Again, things that are inferior tend to fall to the bottom. There would be no need to create laws saying if you ever teach a slave how to read, right? It's like it's like if you got a dog, what do you put when you're not home? You put locks on the refrigerator door to make sure the dog doesn't get in the refrigerator. No, you know that dogs are incapable of getting in the refrigerator, right? So you don't need to put locks on the refrigerator. So if black people were that inferior, intellectually inferior, if they're just so beneath white people, then why is it white people continue to do everything in their power to block and keep black people out? Because a group of people that are truly stupid and incapable, like children with Down syndrome, then why does the system of white supremacy need to actively do everything in its power to maintain itself? Why? Why? I mean, these are the questions that need to be asked, and they don't get asked. Because you get white people that they're overwhelmed with guilt and anger and resentment, and they don't want to they want to pay for the transgressions of their ancestors. I get it. Who the hell would want to pay for some shit that they didn't do? But there's many aspects of that systematically at the collective level. And again, some people benefit more than others, where that white privilege is most certainly extended to white people. It's just that you may not feel it, you may not be aware of it. It's like able-bodied privilege. When I go to a Burger King and I walk in the door and I see that ramp on the side, I don't think anything of it. I walk right past it and I go in the store and I get my food and I come back out, right? But if I was not able-bodied and I was in a wheelchair, you know what I mean? Everywhere I go, I'm hoping and praying that there's some sort of ramp there so I can get up so I can, scoop my ass up on the ramp and so I can get in the building and get my food. I got to worry about stuff like that. I got to worry about whether there's enough handicap parking there and shit like that. Yeah, when you're in it, you got to worry about it. But when you're not in it, you don't have to worry about it. White people don't have to worry about this. But white women don't have to sit around and worry about, whether they're the standard of beauty or not. They're not going to sit there and worry about, whether their hair will be accepted or whether it'll be acceptable. They don't have to walk into a room and worry about, them being undermined by another race of woman, generally speaking, although a lot of white men do make white women feel some type of way with y'all affinity for Asian women, right? I mean, it's all type of things that seem to get overlooked by white people when it comes to it. But namely, the main thing, it's just the money. It's straight up the money. It's straight up the wealth and the damn resources, that allow people to make certain moves in society. All this stuff about, deflecting to other forms of privilege and it's fuck all that. No, the issue is the money and the resources, because that's what black people have been denied. Oh, y'all will give us Jesus. Oh, you can go to jail. You can get Jesus. Oh, degrees in the jail. Oh, no, we got to remove that. No. You're not going to go to jail, break the law, and then go off and get an education. Oh, hell no. Hell no. Right? We're not paying for that. Because remember they used to have you could get like a certificate or a degree or associates while you were in jail, right? Which goes to show you, right? That's what you would do if you were actually trying to reform people, right? And reincorporate them into society. But that's not what prison is for. Prison is just designed to warehouse people, get free labor out of people, right? Get tax dollars out of the American people, as I talked about in my previous video. Oh, yeah, we got to build more prisons, throw more niggas into prison and everything. Then we take your tax dollars and build more prisons and throw more people into prison, and then we warehouse them. And then God knows how much it costs to warehouse those people for however many decades or years that we have to warehouse them. Yeah, that's the white, wealthy, elite people making money hand over fist by fear-mongering the poor, working-class white people or just your average, everyday white people by using the scapegoating black people. Oh, we got to lock the niggas up, so we got to build more prisons, because if we don't build more prisons, they're going to come into your neighborhoods and they're going to rob and steal and everything else, right? It's just a vicious cycle. And yet you have all these people, all even politicians, they got stocks in prisons, right? Stocks and I mean every aspect of the prison is a money making machine. These prisons got security cameras. Okay, well, who's got the company that's making the security cameras for the prisons or selling the security cameras to the prisons? That's a lot of government contracts. Who's making the barbed wire for the prisons? Who's creating the food services for the prisons? Who's creating the uniforms for the prisons? Who's the one that's producing the law enforcement officers for the prisons, or giving them the skill sets or all the equipment that they'll need, and the utility belts and the pepper spray and the batons and all that stuff, and the vehicles for the prison, and the defenses for the prison, right? All the concrete for the prison, right? All the construction workers that got to build the prison itself, right? Again, this is what they call stimulating the economy, right? If you lived in a small town and they said that they're going to build a prison down the road, people say, oh, we don't want a prison there. What if the convicts escape? Da 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 da. Then when they think about it, they're like, wait a minute. Well, who's going to be working in that prison? And they start looking around. They say, hey, we could work this. Yeah. Send them niggas over here. Yeah. Send them over here. So we can get that CO money, right? We can get that corrective officer money, right? So warehousing people becomes a way of generating income, getting votes, for the politicians that offer up the building. We're going to build a prison right here, right? It's just fucked up. I mean, it's like I don't know what to say about it anymore. It's just you just kind of get numb to it. It's like white people are not going to acknowledge this shit. They're not going to lift black people up out of poverty or whatever so that black people can rub shoulders with them, right? And ultimately, at the end of the day, as I've stated numerous times before, the people who are screwing over the most people are the white people who look like y'all. Plain and simple. And I'm talking to the white people right now. The ones that look like y'all. They're the ones that are screwing people over. They're the ones that got all the power and the resources and the billions of dollars and whatnot. Again, look at Michael Bloomberg, or look at Mitt Romney, or look at Donald Trump. He's got millions of dollars, multiple bankrupts and everything else. Like, you don't think that they sit around and they talk to each other and they conspire against each other? Conspire against you all. I mean, this is what they do. That's how they maintain their class. That's how they maintain their status. Then they sit around there and tell you that the enemy is Blackie over there, the black guys. That's the enemy. I mean, this goes all the way back to Bacon's Rebellion, where you had slaves, black slaves, and white indentured servants, and they basically had a revolt against their masters. And in Virginia, they recognized, they said, oh, shit, we can't have this. So what do we got to do? We got to divide and conquer. Give the white people, since they're closer to us, give them a little bit more crumbs, and they'll fight to preserve those little bit of crumbs that they have. They'll fight to preserve that shit. Even though we know it ain't shit. Even though we wouldn't survive off of that shit. But hey, it beats what they were getting before, and that'll probably appease them and keep them, happy or content, right? So by default, in order to keep them happy and content, since their happiness and their contentness is based on them being relatively ahead of black people, then you got to keep the black people down. You can't allow for there to be black success, because if you allow for there to be black success, the white people who believe that they're supposed to be at a certain level at all times are going to start feeling some type of way. And then they're going to start looking at it like, oh, the niggers are taking over. They're going to start, getting all in their feels. So you got to maintain the stratification in the society based on race if you're going to be able to maintain, your position of power. Again, this goes back to why they want to take your guns. Why they want to take your guns. Because if white people ever truly become woke, if they ever wake up out of their coma where they don't realize the actual position that they're in, and that they should probably be joining forces with the minorities, namely black people, if they ever woke up to that, oh please, what would the powerful elites do? Like I said before, they can always pay half the poor to kill the other half. And what many white men don't recognize is that you all are half that poor. You don't recognize that. And these are some of the people that are the most gung-ho in the comment sections. These working class, blue collar, white men who only have a high school degree, didn't go to college. These are the guys that are typically the most gung-ho, Blue Lives Matter, Donald Trump for life, make America great again, and these guys don't have a pot to piss in. I've had to tell black people, I'm like, man, skip over that white dude. That's not the white dude that's oppressing you. Yeah, I know that's the one that's fucking with you. That's the one that you'll see down there in Florida that'll sit there and argue with a black man's wife in the handicapped spot and then pull out a gun and shoot you and shit. Like, yeah, that's the one that'll be doing that type of bullshit. But that's not the one that's really pulling the strings. That's the one that's just mad because he doesn't want to accept the actual position that he's in relative to the other white people. He's the one with the inferiority complex. He's the one that wants that doesn't want to see you, do better, no matter how much he sits there and talks about, black people and personal responsibility. As soon as black people are personally responsible, all of a sudden he's in his feelings because you're driving a nicer car than he is. Now all of a sudden he feels that the game is rigged. He feels that there's reverse racism. You ever notice that? Whenever black people start doing well, it's all of a sudden reverse racism. It's reverse racism, which lets you know that most white people believe that that's the position that they're supposed to be in, that they're supposed to be. I'm supposed to be here. What are you talking about? I'm supposed to be here. If I'm not here, clearly there must be some conspiracies going on. Funny. It's reverse racism if black people are doing well. Even if black people get there by their own their own motivation, right? And the crazy thing is even the black people who do get there, we already know, one, it's not the majority of black people, right? And what was the other thing I was going to say? It's not the majority of black people, and fuck it, I forget what I was going to say, but it's only so many. It's not like the blacks are taking up. It's like the same people that sit around and they talk about like all the black people are on welfare, breathing up the white man's air, and then turn right around and then start talking about how black people are taking all the good jobs through affirmative action. I'm like, how is that possible? How can you sit there and see a ghetto full of black people and then turn around and then act like the black people who got there, they all got there because of affirmative action? Really? And again, like these people won't even have the damn skill sets to even get those positions. I remember I was arguing with a white guy in the gym, and he was talking about people coming over with H-1 visas and how they're taking all the jobs and everything. I was like, how are they taking the jobs? How is this guy from India who's a software engineer taking your job when you only have a high school diploma? How, Sway? How is that even possible? I can see if you were also a software engineer and then you felt he took your job, at least be in the position to even apply for the same goddamn job that he applied for. I mean, damn. But no. I'm just mad because there's this hypothetical spot there that I feel that if it's not going to be me, goddammit, it should be some other white person. Maybe there wasn't another white person to take that spot. Did you ever consider that? Shit, how many white guys even go into software engineering other than the liberals? Is most certainly ain't the conservatives. This is why y'all have the biggest problem that you have right now with social media. With Facebook, that's liberal. Twitter, that's liberal. YouTube, that's liberal. Right? So white conservatives don't even have people going into computer science to get their software engineering degree. Otherwise, you would see a lot more conservative social media websites or social media websites that are controlled by conservatives, but you don't, because y'all didn't go into computer science. Y'all go into freaking other bullshit. Or maybe I shouldn't call it bullshit, because many of the jobs that you all do hold, are the backbone of America, getting your hands dirty and all that Mike Rowell, type of jobs and everything that are greatly needed, right? Let me not doo-doo on it. Let me not sound like one of these white feminists running around acting like they don't need men. And I'm like, nah, men need to be doing those dirty jobs. Somebody's got to do it. You know what I mean? And I also believe that those jobs should pay damn good money. But they shouldn't just pay damn good money when it's just white people. They should pay damn good money when it's black people working those damn jobs too. I mean, to try to act like group economics doesn't exist and therefore, therefore white privilege can't exist. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. When you go into Chinatown, you see one group of people controlling that shit. When you look at the Fortune 500 companies, you see one group of people controlling that shit. When you look at the executive boards and all that, you see one group of people controlling that shit. And white people say, oh, well, it's black people because they got low IQs because, they're not going and getting. If you grow up in a poor community and your tax dollars pay for your property taxes, pay for the school district, which is why you see parents that are trying to send their kids to other schools. I've seen white people do it too. The grandparents live in a better zip code than the actual parents do. And so what do? They say that their kids live with the grandparents so that they can go to a better school. The educational system in this country is fucked. So you have a group of people that just, they're not getting tip-top education. And then you get freaking, black high schoolers that are reading at a 5th grade level. And then white people go, oh, low IQs. And it's like, how much money did they spend at your school per pupil versus at the black school per pupil? Was it the same amount of money? I bet you it wasn't. And again, see, I look at the brain like a muscle. It comes down to what you are exposed to, right? What you're exposed to, right? Like myself, did I grow up in the black community? Did I grow up in poverty? No. I got more white privilege, quote unquote, than many white people listening to this video based on how I grew up. Now, where's the difference? The difference is there's very few black people who grew up like me. I don't have a army of young black men that are the same age as me that I can go out there and I can network with and make moves with, unless I try to find them on YouTube. But white guys, I know white guys that literally same high school. They all graduated and they went off and they did things. Their dads had money. Hey, Dad, I have an idea. And they go off and their dad throws money at them. And then they go off and do something with that idea. I mean, look at the guy that started GoPro. His dad gave him $200,000 to create GoPro. Like, here, son, here's $200,000. If that ain't privilege, I don't know what the fuck is. So in terms of the people who want to sit there and say, oh, you sound like an intelligent, articulate black man. White people love that shit. Or do you sound like an articulate black man? Yeah, because I grew up in a particular environment where I had a laptop when I was young. So I was cruising and perusing the internet, reading Wikipedia, watching YouTube videos and stuff like that. If you don't have access to that, there's a whole world of knowledge that you don't have access to. So you're not going to be well versed on a multitude of things. You're just simply not going to be. If you're a little African child growing up in Africa and you don't even have running water, let alone electricity, you don't even know what electricity is. You're not going to be able to. I shouldn't say you're not going to be able to, but you're delayed. I mean, it's just that simple. You're delayed. And when it comes to black students, like I said before, they're God knows how much untapped talent there is, in the inner city that's just being overlooked because the niggas, fuck them. That could be contributing to the, American GDP and all that. But, white people, they got their whole white guilt complex. They want to maintain power and all that other stuff, right? I don't even know how the hell we supposed to get in the goddamn future. You go over and Star Trek. They didn't even have money in Star Trek. They didn't use money. They traveled the stars, for their own edification. I don't know how you get to the future. I mean, God, just, what's it going to be like Elysium with Matt Damon and shit? You got like the small population of super elite rich people living on a ring and the earth is just going to be a shithole. Something's got to give. Again, that's why they want to take people's guns away. They want to have this new world order. They want to do what you see going on in China right now. You know, whether it's the Chinese Muslims that they're just putting them in concentration camps and re-education camps. You know, talk about some sort of dystopian Elon Flux, RoboCop, OCP, you know, fucking type of world. I mean, goddamn. I mean, this might as well be freaking cyberpunk or some shit like that. I mean, for real, for real. Did you see the video that they did, hip hop in China, right? Chinese rappers and stuff like that, and how like they banned it in China, and they coming over the microphone in Chinese talking about, you know, hip hop is banned and it's indecent. You know, they up there just talking all that shit. I'm like, damn. Hip hop is banned, and they interviewing the people and everything, and they was chill, they was keeping it real and everything. It's a form of expression, and I actually find it quite unique at how hip hop for African Americans, the creation of hip hop has become the voice of the oppressed the world over. It's the most consumed genre of music that there is in the world, most downloaded, number one downloaded music in the world. You know, but I don't know how you get to this future world, man. You know, where I mean, I had a whole video where I talked about that, where I talked about, you know, when it's going to happen. These truck drivers are going to go out of work because they're going to have, you know, Elon Musk, and, you know, he's going to put the truck drivers out of work. You know, once Google, and whether it's Tesla or whoever, once they get these automated trucks going, boom, it's going to be like Logan when they were running through the cornfields and shit, and they had those trailers going like 90 miles an hour on Route 66 blowing past them and whatnot, right? You're going to have drones dropping off, you know, stuff. And this is going to affect you blue collar white men. That's who is going to affect you know, I shouldn't say the most, because I think so arguably some people say, well, black people, you know, they've been pushed out of the market. Yeah. I think that I keep telling black people, I'm like, don't write rhymes, write code, because that's where the market is going. You know, and then what happens when you have like the rich people, they got all the robots doing everything, right? You're going to have to go to a standard income. The end of capitalism, whether you like it or not, it's coming. It's coming. You know, so it'll be like something like communist Russia with rations or some shit like that. Because if robots are doing anything, I mean, it is an inevitability that at some point humanity will get to pretty much, let's say, a tier 1 civilization. Or maybe a tier 2 civilization. I think we're a tier 0 civilization right now. Right? You know, all the cars on the road going to be electric. You know, they're going to have robots doing shit. It's coming. Okay, so if robots are doing all the manual labor, okay, how does anybody make a living, right? What do you do with all the people who aren't college worthy, right? What do you do with all the people who wouldn't make it through college? They can't do arithmetic or whatever. What do you do with those people? Where do you stick them, right? Because everybody. Only like 26% of the American population even goes to college and get a 4-year degree. And now it's even declining because people are seeing that the college degrees that most people are getting are useless and worthless, and they're not going to equate to getting a job. Hell, companies aren't even picking people off of jobs anymore. Everybody keeps talking about IQ, like Sam Harris and Douglas Murray. They keep talking about IQ, but companies aren't even hiring on IQ anymore. They're hiring on EQ, which is emotional intelligence. Understanding your surroundings, understanding yourself, understanding how other people perceive you, right? Understanding other people's behavior more than they understand it themselves. You know, being a team leader, all that type of stuff, you know, where you got to have some sort of level of people skills. And if it's all about having people skills, hell, the conditions of the way that black people have been living, you know, where they've learned to operate without money and resources, and they've developed social skills as a survival mechanism. Oh, well, shit. If it's all about EQ, well, black people are your people, right? But that's a whole different conversation. People sitting around talking about, oh, the black people, low IQ, intelligence, and all this other stuff, and, you know, being denied resources and everything. And yet the lyrical content of the music is what everybody, you know, runs around and listens to because it's so poetic and it's so brilliant in the way that he put that together and this, that, and the third. Yeah, because that's all they're allowed to do. If they were allowed to do anything else, who knows what it could be. Like I said before, When black people had intact, thriving black communities, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Rosewood, Florida, Springfield, Illinois, Omaha, Nebraska, Elaine, Arkansas. Did I say Tulsa, Oklahoma? I think I said Tulsa, Oklahoma. They were burnt down to the ground. Central Park in New York was Seneca Village. It is no longer Seneca Village. It is now Central Park. You know, people don't know this type of stuff. All the black people were run out of Wilmington, North Carolina in 1898. So again, if black people IQs are so low, then why is it that white supremacy has to actively maintain its position in relationship to black people? Why do they have to fight so hard? Why do they have to spend so much energy keeping people out and blocking people? Why? If black people just don't have the capability, they don't have the capability. You don't have to worry about it, right? Right? You don't have to worry about affirmative action if black people have so low IQs, they're not even applying to university. They're not even trying to get in. Right? The crazy thing is the black people in the 1950s and 60s, they were trying to get in. They had to fight to get in. White people were perfectly content giving black people inferior facilities and then basically calling it even. So it's ridiculous, man. It's just ridiculous. And it is the type of stuff that people want to wonder why so many people get mad at, namely, white men. Why it's so easy for people to just throw throw vitriol at white men, at the collective level. Because of the dumbass shit that a lot of y'all say. Not each and every one of you, let me make the disclaimer, but a lot of you, like freaking Doug Murray. Just gaslighting this shit. I'm sure he wouldn't like anybody gaslighting his homosexuality and all the stuff he believes in. But it's just intellectually dishonest. At the end of the day, tribalism and group economics is real. It's about the money. Privilege comes from the money. Nobody cares. I mean, it's so, that's another part that pissed me off. Well, we're going to talk about good looks privilege. A good-looking black man has it better than a wealthy white man or a wealthy short white man. What if the white man is short, but he's wealthy, but he's short? Don't you think that the black man who's taller and athletic and better built, even though he works a freaking job at McDonald's, is better off? I mean, why is it that the black guy that has a better body and a 10-inch cock, why is it that he is able to attract more women than this 5'4" wealthy white man? Does he not have black privilege over this white man? Just nonsensical bullshit. Just nonsensical, not the topic of the conversation when people are talking about white privilege. It's no different than the people that sit up there and they want to say, Colin Kaepernick is disrespecting the troops when he's protesting police brutality. It is irritating to sit there and listen to that national anthem. You see white people, they get all take the hat off, put their hat over their heart, and they get all, oh, say, can you see? Right? They get all into it, right? And you sitting there and you thinking as an African American, you like, my grandfather fought in World War II. Or you thinking about the black soldiers that they didn't get their medals of honor until after they died because, we wasn't about to give a Negro a medal of honor. Oh, hell no. Right? You think about the block busting, the redlining, the Jim Crow. Right? You think about black people getting put into these contracts as sharecroppers that they couldn't get out of, where they were just bogged down with debt. Right? The redlining, the block busting, the freaking, if I didn't already say that, the denial of black people from having access to the Homestead Act, the denial of what else was it? Social Security for the first 20 years. Yeah, if you didn't know, black people weren't allowed to have access to Social Security for the first 20 years of its existence. So even though they were paying into it, They weren't allowed to have access to it for the first 20 years. You know. Then on top of that, then you got the CIA coming in, dumping drugs in the black community. Thank you, Ronald Reagan and Oliver North, who just so happened to be previously, before Wayne LaPierre came back, the president of the NRA. Then you wonder why black people are like, this nigga suspect. We don't fuck with the NRA. Again, I wish black people would get over their emotions, but you could probably understand why they would be a little bit perturbed. Right? So, you know, all these things. I mean, it just amazes me. I'm like, you know, it's like, I wonder how that feels, man, to be a white American. And, you know, just think of just nothing but greatness when it comes to America. It just seems like y'all take so much pride in that you really don't want to hear about America's ugly past. Right? You know, you really don't. We're like that. You know, we're like the hunchback of Notre Dame or something. You want to keep us in the closet. You want to hide us, right? You want to make sure that when the guests come over, we don't come out and you know, freaking show our ugly face and whatnot. You know, like that movie, The People Under the Stairs. You ever see that movie? That's a great horror movie. 1990. When did it come out? 1991, 1992. God, that movie's so good. People Under the Stairs. Yeah, we the people under the stairs, and you don't want us to come out when your guests come over and whatnot. Right? We running around the walls like Foo, right? That was his name in the movie, the white dude, the white guy whose tongue was cut off. Right? I'm not going to ruin the movie for you, but for some of you young people who were probably born in like 1998 or whatever, yeah, you need to go watch People Underneath the Stairs. That movie is the shit. That movie is the shit. That's the best. That's like the best horror movie out, and it's so underrated. But anyway, a lot of the movies of the late 80s and the early 90s were some of the best movies. I don't know why, they just were. But I don't know what more to say, man. It's just so. It's just listening to this drivel. Like, I mean, just God. You know, and then they just sit up there and just arrogantly say it the way that he says it, like he's just so calm and nonchalant, you know, and just this is just, you know, some trivial bullshit, you know, that he's just dismissing, right? Just so flippantly. I'm just like, white people, man. But anyway, man, that's all I gotta say, man. I'm going to get back to talking about some guns. Somebody asked me a question a while ago. I did the video. I just haven't posted it, about why it is, what did they say? They said why it is, or what no, I remember the quote. The question was, what could the NRA do to bring more black people on board? And I did the video. I just never posted it. So I'll probably post that one next. Anyway, that's my video. New Jersey gun laws out.